This episode is brought to you by the generous donations of our sponsors, Dr. Ramzi and Dr. Ramona Dakour, Nabil and Dad Al-Mashtoub, Joe and Randa Ghazal, Wael and Diana Fayyad, Mike and Salam Ghaida. Thank you. Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast 1017, and today I have the pleasure of introducing Malek Najjar. He's Associate Professor of Theater Arts with University of Oregon. He is also a professional theater director and focuses on Arab American drama, film, and television. So, Malek, I'm super excited to have you.
Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Of course. I think one thing me and Joe agree on is that we love how open-minded you are and how involved you are in the arts. I think arts is extremely important. I took acting classes when I was young, and I think because of my pushing my father to say, hey, no, I want to take this, I think this is why I'm able to speak in front of people and even just show my personality. And the fact that you make this as a profession for yourself is just phenomenal. I have a ton of questions to ask you. So get ready. I might talk your ear off.
I'm always so happy to hear about our young people in the arts. We need to actually have more representation in the arts, or else, honestly, the stereotypes that we keep seeing on the screen will continue to perpetuate. So we have to be the ones to change that.
I agree 100%, because even in this nowadays, I think Arab Americans need to step up and not only speak for the Arabs that are overseas, and because we have, in a way, we have a privilege living in this country, and if we're able to showcase what it really is to live overseas and sometimes how they don't get the opportunities that we get, I think will not only help them to inspire everyone around us around the world, but also just inspire the kids in our generations here, living here, to do something greater and speak to other people in a larger way.
Absolutely. And many great scholars that preceded us talked about that. And I think especially Jack G. Shaheen, who wrote the book Real Bad Arabs, R-E-E-L, Bad Arabs, which is just seminal reading, because he talked about the fact that these stereotypes are pernicious and they won't go away on their own. We actually have to, in his words, hunt them down because they exist, and they will continue to exist unless we make a conscious effort to change the narrative. And I think that unless we are in positions of power, in studios, in rehearsal rooms, in front of cameras, directing these things, writing these things, I don't think those stereotypes will go away anytime soon.
I agree 110%. Plus, we're doing it in a way where people are, this is the best way to reach people. I mean, think about it. Our generation, how are they learning? It's online, right? It's on TV. It's not in a book anymore. As much as I love books, it's just not, and so you have to speak their language. I know Nelson Mandela said this best. He said, if you speak to someone, if you speak to someone, it goes to their head. But if you speak it in their language, it goes to their heart. I think I said that right. I'm not sure, but you get the gist. It's really just, if you can speak the language that someone else speaks and it's by their native tongue, I think that's how you can really get people listening.
So what strikes me as being extremely important for our generation and for the generations to come is that we actually allow our young people to enter into the artistic fields. Because if we don't, we will never change the narrative that's out there. And I think that even though it is difficult, even though it's sometimes financially stressful, we have to be in as the musical Hamilton says, in the room where it happens. We have to be in the place where the decisions are being made. We have to be the ones writing the scripts, directing the scripts, acting out the characters. When we do that, I think that then we can really start to change how we are being viewed, because we're actually going to be on the screen representing ourselves rather than being represented by others.
I love that. And just to add on to that, why the arts is so powerful and why acting is so powerful is because it allows you to put yourself in a position, A, where you can speak in front of people, but B, also put yourself in someone else's shoes. When you truly understand, so there's this book recently I've been reading, it's called An Actor Prepares. Yes. And it's by, God, why am I forgetting his name?
Stanislavski.
Yes. So I was recently, it was funny, I ran into a kid and he had this book and I love to read. So I was like, why are you reading this book, An Actor Prepares? I never understood why anybody would read about acting, rather just experience it. And then he kind of went deep and he explained to me, he's like, well, you want to master your craft. And I was like, okay, explain to me that. What do you mean by that? And so he's like, well, when you understand how an actor should should be when they walk into a role. You understand how to become that character. And he talks about this book and how Constantine shares his diary basically on exactly how he had to learn to perform in a way where it allowed him to be open-minded and actually experience what that character experienced in order to perform like that character or be that character, right? And so as I'm still reading, I'm still understanding it, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is when you are able to master that ability, you're also able to read people really well and understand how they are as people and look at them in a different way rather than just a human being, but more of a spiritual being or just a soul. And I don't want to get too spiritual on here, but in a way, if you look at them, you're able to really understand them deeper than what you see right in front of you. And that allows you to have a better connection. But I'm sure you have something to say about that.
No, absolutely. And Stanislavski himself, he defined the modern actor, the idea of being able to take on a character fully and embody them and embrace them. And I think that worked for him because he was working with very deep scripts like those of Anton Chekhov's plays. The problem is now we don't have deep material often. So for instance, a lot of screenplays write very one-dimensional characters, not three-dimensional characters, especially when it comes to minorities. And this is the problem. So how can you possibly bring so much of yourself as an actor to a character that's written so shallowly, where it just shows the character as a gang member or as a terrorist or as a...
It's like labeling them versus really understanding them.
That's right. That's right. So what from in my view has to happen is that we have to write more three-dimensional minority characters, whether they're in the African American community, Asian American community, Latino community, or our own Arab American community.
Right.
Because then we actually have fully dimensional characters that require embodiment by the actor. But up to now, what's happened is the non-minority characters are three-dimensional, and everyone else that's a minority is one-dimensional. And therefore, they just need you to come in and play a stereotype. And that is the problem. We keep being cast, and I have a lot of Arab American friends who keep getting cast in very stereotypical roles. And they said, I'm tired of it, really. And so what I think that the greatest people have done in our field specifically is they said, you know what, I'm going to write my own material. I'm going to write my own screenplays. I'm going to write my own plays. I'm going to produce my own plays. I'm going to be in my own plays. And when they do that, they create much more multifaceted, embodied characters that are so inspirational and so beautiful in a way that those who have been writing us from the outside have never written. And so that's the challenge. That's the hard work that has to happen. But it won't happen unless we're trained, unless we really understand our craft deeply, whether it's in acting, writing, directing, design. We just have to make those major, we have to make a major leap into that field if we're ever going to change it.
I love that you said that, because now you're teaching Arab Americans to take matters in their own hands, and not be in the system, but work with the system. So play the game, be in the game that they're playing, but don't always have to play by the rules, and find a way to win in some way.
Absolutely. And it's been done before. Look at how the African Americans and the Latinx community have changed their narrative. And it's really exciting. And when you think about how people have done that, I think that gives us a great template from which to work. And just because we're late to the game, if you will, doesn't mean that we can't be part of the game. We really have to now enter this field and start changing it the way that they did back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. Now it's our turn to step up and do the same.
I love you're saying that, because now I'm getting goosebumps, because I was literally just talking about this to my brother 3 months ago. And I was telling him, I was like, you know what? I was like, and I was telling him how I really wanted to get into production, and this is the route I wanted to take. And he said, well, why production, not acting? I see you more as an actor and this and that. Well, I was like, well, let me tell you why. I was like, because I'll have control on what parts I want to play. If I just go into the system as an actress, I don't have any say in anything. And it's not me wanting to be controlling, but it's me being very intentional with what exactly I wanted to be or perform or even showcase in the community or in the industry of show business. Because because there's just I hate to say it, excuse my French, but there's so much bullshit movies out there. Like, if you've seen the statistics, there's probably, I think if I was not mistaken, about 500 to 800 movies produced this past year. You know how many YouTube videos have been released this past year? Over millions and billions. Like over 100 to 200 million. I don't even know how much it was, like way more than the movie industry. And on top of that, it's inspiring more people. There's more views on YouTube than there is actually people going to the cinema. So to me, that tells me
That's
people
right.
are seeking something that we're not providing in the movie industry. And that tells me
That's
that
right.
things need to be changed. And the way that happens is through content creators who understand that and want to inspire, because unfortunately we're in a position now where our future is growing up. And if we don't start creating things that teach them something or inspire them to do something, they're going to get lost in this digital world that's showing up now. And it's not
That's
going to
right.
be very pretty for us either. So anyway, that's just my little spiel.
No, it's
Two
it's
cents.
very true. You know, the Hollywood movie industry has gatekeepers. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're the ones with the money. They're the ones with the
Right.
power. They're the ones with, and because of that, a very small group of people have had a tremendous amount of power for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And because of that, the abuses that we see happening, like a Harvey Weinstein or others,
Mm-hmm.
have allowed to go on because it's been a
Right.
small enclosed ecosystem.
Right.
Well, like you said, now through the democratization of
Mm-hmm.
media, through things like YouTube or these, you know, singing talent shows or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it may be, you know, we have an opportunity now to actually have people who were never allowed in to get in,
Mm-hmm.
based on their talent, based on their writing, based on other things. So as a matter of fact, I look at some people look askance at things like YouTube, and I say, this is a chance for us to
Yeah.
break in. Granted, sometimes you break in and you're kind of lost in the wilderness, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes things can have a breakout effect. So it becomes a more open playing field. I
Yeah.
have friends who are singer-songwriters, and in the past, you had to go audition, you had to get a contract, you had to go through a major studio label in order to produce an album. And now they could literally record songs in their rooms and post them up on any, you know, streaming platform in minutes.
Right.
That's changed the entire world that we're living in, and I think we need to take advantage of that.
I love that you said that, because now, like you said, there is freedom and so
There
many
is.
opportunities and different routes you can take. It's not the traditional, let me go to a talent agency, let me see what I can get from there. It's thinking outside the box and being creative with the game they gave us, and just figuring
That's right.
out what you can do to leave your mark. And if I
That's right.
that's the best way to put it. So now
Absolutely.
talk to me. Let's talk about your expertise for a second, because I would love to hear from
Sure.
someone who's a professor who teaches theater art, and I want to understand, what would you say to someone who's trying to get into the acting world, let's say, or producing, or whatever the case may be, theater, whatever that may be? What would you say about someone who's thinking to go more just like audition to a ton of stuff, get a ton of experience, may not have acting skills, might just take a few classes on the side, but is focused more on getting more roles and experience rather than going the academic route and applying to college of arts? So explain the difference and explain why it's an advantage to go to a university and learn.
Well, there are a couple of routes to take. The
Mm-hmm.
first route is there's a playwright named David Mamet who just
Right.
says, go out there and audition and just
Mm-hmm.
let the audience be your teacher.
Right.
So his view really is you don't need people to teach you. You can teach yourself by just performing nonstop. Just go and work. And
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some merit to that. However, I don't think you would tell that to somebody who's trying to play Beethoven. You wouldn't just give them a piano and say, go play Beethoven.
Mm-hmm.
You'll figure it out. You have to be trained. So I'm a great advocate of training. Now, I don't believe that everyone should go through a university training system. I think that there are conservatories that are quite excellent, that you can be trained in a short amount of time, say 2 to 3 year training programs.
Mm-hmm.
And they will give you the fundamentals of acting on stage or on camera. And those are really great ways to get yourself started. However, I'm also a great advocate of a university system, because I don't believe that actors should be automatons either. I don't think that we should just be like robots, because those are the actors I feel that get taken advantage of. They don't have views on politics, history. They don't have views on literature and dramatic literature.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's what a university system does. It gives you a universal view of the world that you're living in. So I think it really comes down to what the person believes is their calling. If they want to be an actor 24/7, then I would say get some training in the beginning. It doesn't have to be a university. Go to a conservatory, but get some training that just gets you a foundation from which you can build. But if you want more than just being a performer, if you want to open up your horizons to, say, producing, directing, etc., I really do think having more of a world perspective, if you will, a
Mm-hmm.
global perspective, is actually a very positive thing. Because how can you possibly write about politics if you've never studied politics or read political theory?
Right.
How can you possibly understand the history of fashion if you've never really taken those sort of answer? But I think that there are multiple routes to get to where you're going. I
Mm-hmm.
would just caution actors from just going straight into the industry with no training and no background in things like art appreciation, theater appreciation, etc., because those most likely are going to be the actors that get used to just play the roles that are given to them without
Mm.
much critical thought behind it.
Got you, got you. Okay, so it's really understanding what type of route you want to be as an actor, like
Right.
what type of actor you want to be, and then
That's right.
understanding what route you should take. So it sounds like if you're trying to play more theater roles, something that's more historical, right,
Mhm.
and play roles that are seen as more theater, go that route, and then
Right.
and really master that craft. If it's something where
That's
you
right.
just want to be on TV and you don't mind doing whatever you want to do, or maybe you do care, but going the experience route will help you, but find a way where that if it's playing any role, then go the route of how you play it, like the traditional route. But if it's not playing
That's
every role, like we mentioned before, find a way through maybe a YouTube channel, finding producers, however, or creating your own scripts and being your own producer and acting your own movies is
that's
another
right.
way too. There's a
Yeah.
famous. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, because things have been done before we came along, and it's
Right.
important to know what's been done to
Right.
understand that history before you go on and start to create your own
Right.
body of work. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why, I mean, some of the greatest producers and filmmakers, etc., have gone through a system like a USC, film and training program, or Yale University,
Mm-hmm.
or a lot of those places. They give you the foundational knowledge that you require in order to go off and then say, okay, I understand what's been done prior. Now it's time for me to build upon that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so
Right.
I would just say that is the value of an education at this point.
Mm. So talk to me about how you got started and why you got started through arts.
Well, I have to tell you, just like everyone else in our community, I was told not to go into the arts.
Right.
The instant advice was, "There's no place for you there. You'll never make it. It's not for you. It's for other people."
Mm-hmm.
So that was very discouraging, to be totally honest. However,
Yeah.
when I was watching shows that I had seen, like for instance, MASH, right? The show MASH would come on, and there's this guy named Klinger, and he's Lebanese, but he's also talking about riding camels in the desert and just all sorts of nonsensical
Right.
notions about what it meant to be Lebanese. I
Mm.
mean, I've been to Lebanon many times in my life, and I saw a camel once. I think he was just like a tourist attraction. There's nothing,
All right.
there's
Right.
nothing
It's
like,
not a thing.
it's not a thing, but that's how we were perceived, portrayed,
Mm.
and then I saw multiple times when we were either the sort of desert dwelling chic Arab,
Mm.
or you're the terrorist Arab, or just negative stereotypes, one after another. And so as I was going along and I was starting to act and learn more, I thought to myself, well, gosh, I wonder if there's another way to do this. Is there another way to
Mm.
understand this? So I started acting in high school, and then I decided in college to major in theater arts. And when I did that, I took playwriting classes, directing classes, acting classes, production classes. I mean, I did everything from hanging lights to writing scripts to acting scripts to directing whole plays.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an excellent foundational education for me. And when I graduated, I decided, well, what are my options? Do I go to graduate school immediately? Do I try to do something different? And I had several colleagues at the school, and I thought to myself, why
Mm.
don't I start a theater company? So I did. I started a theater company, and we had, I think, like $3,000 between the three of us that
Wow.
started the company. And we just got busy, and we started producing plays, directing plays, designing plays. And 5 years later, we were filling 800-seat houses. And
Mm.
that was a great education, because that, again, was me having to do everything in the
Mm.
theater, from cleaning the bathrooms to hanging the curtains to directing the plays to writing the scripts, whatever it took. You had to do it because it was
Mm.
all on you. And that was
Right.
a great education in and of itself. I then went on and received a master's degree in directing in
Wow.
York University in Toronto. And that gave me the fundamentals specifically about directing that I really thought were missing in my education at that point, the real deep fundamentals. I went to Los Angeles, I freelanced, I taught, etc., for quite a while. And then I started going down more and more the sort of teaching route. And teaching is a wonderful profession. It really does have
it's a
great
skill.
opportunities, and it's a great skill. And it allowed me to actually say, here's a chance for me to actually write about theater, not just produce theater, but write about it, learn about it, and spend more time focusing on Arab American theater specifically. So academia was great because it also taught me that I had an opportunity to discuss our history as Arab Americans, and also our history as Arab American performers and writers, etc. So after I received my PhD, I wrote my dissertation on Arab American theater, film, and performance, and that really opened up my mind and my consciousness to the fact that we have been doing this in this country for over a century. And, that's something else that nobody really talks about, is that, Arab Americans, we have been part of this narrative for a very long time.
Right.
And starting with Khalil Gibran, the Khail Naimi, with Amin Rihani, all of those men were playwrights, and nobody ever talks about their plays as, they were playwrights as well as theater aficionados and as novelists and poets. So we have a deep, rich history in this country, and nobody knows about it. And to this day, one thing I do with students is I'll put up a bust of Shakespeare, and I'll put up a little bust of Khalil Gibran, and I'll say, who's this guy? Oh, William Shakespeare. Who's this guy? Silence. Complete silence. And it's so sad to me that we don't have a knowledge of our history, that we don't understand that these were Arab American writers. They were American writers, but they were of Arab descent, and we've never read their works. We don't even understand what they did. And so it's now I feel that my educational mission is even greater, because we have to educate people about their history, whether they're Arab Americans or not Arab Americans. We still don't have a deep understanding of our own history.
Right. I love that you said that, because it's unfortunate, because we also lose our culture with kids just in general. So a lot of them don't even know about our history. They don't understand our culture. They don't really understand much, that it's like we lose them, and
That's right.
and it's unfortunate, because they only see the bad stuff, and because of the media. And if you actually study, like Khalil Gibran, who I absolutely love, if you actually study some of our people, they're very wise, and they wrote some beautiful things, and they were super open-minded back then, even and they were us in their generation, and so it's unfortunate. So I love that you're putting yourself out there. You're teaching these classes. You're educating students, because this is what's gonna set them up for the future and keep us in mind to continue it. Because we're not what we're seeing on media, but there is a lot about us that's so beautiful that we can talk about.
That's right. And the idea that we don't have a place in the entertainment industry or in the literary arts is not true. I mean, these people were writing in the 1900s. They were the first Arab American play was 1908. Right. Wow. So these plays have been done. They have been, now it was never produced, but it was written. There has been a literary and artistic urge within our people for a very long time. And those of us who are Lebanese should be even dually proud, because all of these people were Lebanese/Syrians, in their own time. So there's a lot to be proud of. And if you look at the work of, say, the Rahbanis in Lebanon, they created amazing art in their time. So our people are deeply artistic, deeply musical, deeply funny. We have great comedy, we have great drama. We can do this. We know we can do this. We've seen it done overseas with other other creators. We can do that here as well. And I think that, unfortunately, we've been programmed and told that we're not allowed to, whether it's from our own community or whether it's from the outside community. That said, well, these people don't belong here. Well, that's not true. We belong. We should be doing our work just like everyone else is doing their work. And we can actually change the way that the landscape, if you will, the film and theater landscape, if we just commit ourselves to a life in this field. Unfortunately, our parents, because they're worried about the economic situation, the difficulties of making it, if you will.
How we look in front of everybody else,
I understand that. Look, it's a tough life. I'm not going to pretend that it's easy. It's a tough life. However, we're never going to make a difference unless we actually put our necks out there, if you will, and actually make those struggles and sacrifices in order to do things differently. Right.
I mean, I'm with you 100%. I mean, this is extremely important if we can get up just enough, right? Enough of an army of really strong Arab Americans who understand their purpose and their intentions and have a love and passion for acting and production and directing and theater and all of that.
That's right.
it would just be beautiful. We'll set up a really beautiful future for our kids and their kids, and really change the way we are seen to the rest of the world.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that that's the kind of sacrifice that we're going to have to start making.
Right.
I really I worry for us because we're too, as Arab Americans, we've been too comfortable hiding behind, for instance, whiteness. Checking off
Yeah.
that white box on the census, checking off the white
Really
box.
annoying. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we haven't advocated for ourselves the way that other groups have. Right.
Right.
And when you don't advocate for yourself, nothing will be done for you. So African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, others,
Right.
because they had those check boxes on the census, they were getting different social services, monies that were being put into their communities.
Right.
We always fought for whiteness, and by doing so, we've actually excluded ourselves from having opportunities. And we're not considered a minority. We're considered white. Well, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Nobody looks at us as white, to be quite honest, in
that's
white
true.
culture. And so the sooner that we put away that false notion and we start focusing on the fact that we are different and unique, and that's a good thing, I think that's when we can actually change our situation within this country. But those are the sacrifices that others have made that we haven't traditionally made, historically made. And because of that, I feel that we are very, very far behind other groups in this country in that way.
Right. I'm with you 100%. Everything you're saying is super correct. We need to make a stand for ourselves. If we want to be seen differently, we have to stand up for ourselves, and we have to make a point that that's what we want. And
that's right.
It's just going to take a lot of time, and that's something that whoever's passionate about and understands. But it's important. It's extremely important for our future. So I'm with you.
Right. That's right. And I feel that this has to be a broad coalition of Middle Easterners. I don't think it's just all on Arab Americans. I think that Turkish Americans, the different minority groups that are in Iranian Americans, we all have to come together and say this is a collective fight that we have to fight at this point, because we can't keep business as usual has not worked for us. Maybe it has if you kind of melt into and you assimilate into the population. But for those of us that still want to retain our culture and to be proud of it and to say that it is a distinct, separate, and interesting culture, I think we're really going to have to take some steps to change that narrative and make the tough decisions that it takes. I was at AUB last fall for a conference, and several young Arab American Druze American women stood up and said, I wanted to go into the arts. My parents said, no, I couldn't do it because going into the arts meant that I was going to be considered. And this one young woman used a very interesting Arabic word, which I won't use on your podcast.
I can probably
people were, and people were like, oh, no, that's not true. And frankly, it is sadly true that we still have these very unfortunate old-fashioned notions about what it means to be an artist, and I find that to be very sad. And a sheikh came up to me, a young man, but he had children, and he said, well, if they would only let them do good roles, we might allow them to, but none of these bad roles that they give them.
Right.
And I think to myself, well, as an actor, you're going to play every kind of role. There is no just good or just bad roles. You're playing all kinds of different roles. So, I think we have a long uphill battle to fight.
And also, like we said before, I mean, look at, for God's sakes, Nadine Labaki, one of my favorite Lebanese producers.
She's amazing.
She's beautiful. She talks the truth in every movie she creates, and she acts in it because she understood what roles she wants to play and what movies she wants to produce and share the truth with the rest of the world. And they're entertaining, and I love them. So it's I hate to say this, but it is all excuses. And to be honest, it is all just bumps on the road. If people want to stop you because of something else, I understand that. That makes sense. I get why no parent would want a kid to be an actor. But you can have a choice in what roles you play if you take a little bit of a harder route, but will save you a lot of time in the future and headaches.
Yeah, there's a wonderful Palestinian-American screenwriter, director, actress named Shireen Dabbas. And she's amazing. I beg you to watch her films. She did a great film called America, which is a beautiful film about Arabs coming to America and having to struggle to be accepted and to make it in this country. And she's a great example of somebody who was born and raised in this country, female, who said, I'm going to be a part of this industry. And she directs in Hollywood. She acts in her films. She writes her films. She directs her films. She's a great inspiration. These are the people we need to be looking up to. And we need to say, these are the ones that are going to really make the difference, because she's writing deeply interesting three-dimensional female characters that happen to be Arab as well. So this is the way forward. It really is. And I think we need to start heralding these people and cherishing them and looking up to them, rather than saying, well, that's not a career for my child.
Right.
I think the more we do that, the more we limit our options and our opportunities in this country.
And it's suffocating when a child is born with a like to creativity, and that's the way they're able to express themselves. It's suffocating for them when they're not able to do that. It's extremely suffocating, and you feel very unfulfilled because you're not expressing that type of energy that you love to express, and it's unfortunate. So if any parents are listening out there and your kid wants to be an actor or an actress, please let them be.
I'm telling you, it is such a beautiful look. When economic situation aside, it is a deeply beautiful career to be an artist.
Right.
To express yourself, to express the hopes and dreams and aspirations of the people you know. We need to really, I think it's a great calling. And I always tell people going into the arts is less a profession and more of a calling, because, you don't go into the arts to retire like most people do in most businesses. You go into the arts to be an artist until the day you die. That is it's your calling. It is your mission. It is the thing that drives you and motivates you. I can think of no more beautiful purpose in life than to be an artist. But the truth is that until we take away those impediments, our young people will always feel like they're never allowed to be a part of this artistic movement. And that's very sad to me.
I would definitely say, if any parents out there listening to this, I would definitely say just change your perspective and be a little bit open-minded. Understand that being an actor, an actress, producer, it's like starting a business. You have to invest, and you never know what's going to happen. But if you give them the support they need, the business that they're trying to be in and pursue is going to flourish. And hey, it might be your own retirement too. So there's that.
That's right. Well, I often tell parents, you came to this country and did what you had to do to survive. But I hope that you will think about the idea that you can let your children do what they want to do in this country, because you set up that foundation for them. You gave them the education. You gave them the economical foundation in order to go off and now achieve their dream.
I love it. Yeah.
And when I was in Minneapolis recently, I found there was this, I went running when I was there, and there was this piece of graffiti, wildest dreams. And I think that's true. I think that's what our purpose is, to be the thing that our ancestors couldn't be, to be the thing that our parents couldn't be. If they couldn't achieve those things, we need to then say, you know what, we can achieve those things. That's our calling in our generation.
And I love you said that. It's even to go deeper than that. If you think about it from, and we don't actually have to put Drew's stuff on here, actually, just because you don't want to talk about religion. But I do want to add this in a spiritual way. If you look at it, if you stop a soul from achieving the things that they're most passionate about, how can they ever achieve their fullest potential within their faith and within their spirituality, whatever that faith is? It doesn't matter.
That's right.
And then just be the better version of themselves. You can't, if you stop them from the point of where they even speak to you about what they're truly passionate about, and you tell them, oh no, because of this and this and this, you give them a ton of limitations. How can they ever achieve their fullest potential? They'll never be able to, because that was their calling, that was their purpose, and that was their passion, and that was what's going to help them not only be the better version of themselves, but help your grandchildren and their grandchildren and on and on.
That's right. And I think that if anyone should be allowing that, it should be those of us who come from immigrant backgrounds. My grandfather, he left Lebanon in 1907 and he made that journey. He looked across the Mediterranean Sea and said, I'm going to leave this place and try for a different life.
Because he had a dream.
How bold were these people that did that? Our parents, our grandparents, they were very bold people. Now I'm going to ask them to be just as bold for their children. And say, if you're willing to make that huge leap from your homeland to come here, then why don't you allow your children to make a huge leap from what you've known to what they want to do and what they want to achieve? You're right. It's a spiritual journey as well as being a physical journey. Let's think about things on this sort of spiritual level, that we want our children to have the biggest, widest spiritual adventure possible. And that's one way of doing that, by allowing them to achieve their dreams. And by all means, if they want to be a lawyer, doctor, engineer, and that's their dream, please go for that. That's wonderful.
We need those too. Yeah.
We need that too. But we also should not do all of that at the expense of those others, those few who do want to achieve their dreams, say in the arts or in music or whatever it may be. I think that it's just a sad way of limiting our potential. Yeah. And we should never, ever limit our potential.
I'm with you 110%. So I want to ask you a few questions because I know we went a little over, but it's okay because I love this conversation.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I love it.
Let's say if you were talking to a kid, let's say straight out of college, or even better, let's scratch that. Let's say that you can go back to your 22-year-old self.
Yeah.
Or even let's go with 18.
Yeah.
Right, you're about to start college.
Yeah.
What would you have wished, or looking back now, if you can go back in time, what would you have done differently? And anyone out there listening who was also facing your limitations and, pushbacks and all that, what would you have done differently? What advice would you give them? Or give yourself?
Well, first I would say that even, my father was very adamant that I had a fallback degree. He's like, you got to have a fallback. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I did spend a great deal of time taking classes in engineering and things like that honestly went nowhere and didn't really help me in my career. And I feel that kind of thinking of, well, you'll never make it, so have a fallback is very negative thinking. And looking back now, I wish that was not something that I had listened to or allowed myself to really embrace, because I feel that was kind of an impediment. That was another way of sort of self-programming yourself to say, well, you'll never really make it, so you might as well do this other thing. Right. So I would say, first of all, be careful of this notion that you're not worthy. You are worthy. If you believe in something and you're passionate about something, you're worthy enough to pursue it, just like everyone else is. And so I would tell a young person to follow their passion and to, frankly, drown out the voices that say no and say that you can't do it. You should listen to the voice inside you that says, no, you can do it. So that would be the first bit of advice. And then the other bit of advice I would say is that you should really look at your options and talk to people who are ahead of you, who know more, and ask them, where should I go? Where should I study? Just like we are doing right now. Right. I wish I had somebody like that in my life. I didn't. And I look back now saying, I wish somebody did give me that guidance. So I'm opening an invitation to everyone listening to this podcast. Email me if you want to pursue the career in performing arts. Feel free to email me, contact me. I would love to talk to you about how to do that, because I know a lot more now than I did then. And I hope that I can possibly help you. Or if I can't help you, I'll put you in touch with people who can help you, because I know a lot of great Arab American artists in many different disciplines that are worthy and that do great work, and I think would be great guidance for you. So those would be two things that I would say, looking back on my younger self, that I wish I could do differently. I
love it. That's very kind of you, by the way. So I really appreciate that.
My pleasure.
And guys, take advantage of that. I mean, this is extremely important. This is your life you're talking about and your passions, and and why wait any longer? You got someone here who's an expert in this field. So, and if N is Drew's, so it totally gets you too. So might as well reach out.
I get you completely. I've been there. I've done that. So I get you. And I want you to know that I know that you didn't want to get too much into religion, but
no, it's
okay. Look at, our specificity as Druze Americans. We are a minority within a minority within a minority.
Right.
We have a lot up against us in many different ways. But that said, we come from a deeply rich historical culture. Right. So I would say be proud of your culture. Don't quit wanting to be someone else. Yes, other groups have done amazing things and they're wonderful, but we are pretty amazing ourselves. We survived 1,000 years as technically as we call ourselves Druze, but we have a great history. And I think that we need to stop and relish that history and say, you know what, I want to contribute to that history. That's a good history. It's not something to be afraid of, shy away from, run away from. We should be proud of who we are. And yet we can be a part of a bigger narrative as well, but we can also be very proud of the specific thing that makes us who we are as Druze.
I love that. And plus, if we look at it, I mean, I love our faith and everything about it, because I really study deeply in it. But if you look at it, like, our philosophers were Plato, Aristotle, and many more, and and just studying their works, anyone has access to that,
That's right. That's
and
right.
so to fear, oh, I don't want them to know I'm Jewish because I don't want them to learn, or because I'm afraid because we're secretive, we shouldn't share. No, like everything. If anybody really wants to know more about themselves and being closer to God or whatever the case may be, they'll find a way to seek for that. And
That's right.
And our philosophers are not, they're all not hidden, like they're not secretive, like everyone knows their works,
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I first went to UCLA, I went to the librarian and said, do you have many materials on the Druze? He said, oh, we have a few hundred titles about the Druze in
Wow.
English. In English. And
Wow.
That's amazing.
Wow.
We have so many things that have been translated into English. We have so many books by some of the great scholars like Dr. McAdam. We have amazing books
Druze
that we can
Mystics, I think was called.
and historical information as well. So there's the knowledge is out there. We just need to seek it. And for those of us who don't read Arabic deeply, I can't say I read Arabic deeply. Like I can't read the original Hekmi. But what I can say is I've read a great deal about our history, and I know a great deal about our history by attending lectures, reading books, etc. And I can say that there is a lot of really great inspirational material there for us to learn from and to carry forward as we go on in our journey. So instead of running away from who we are, I would just say embrace who you are and look at it as a rich cultural fountain from which to draw, rather than a thing to be afraid of or to fear or to want to constantly be wishing you were someone else. There's no reason to do that. We have a lot to be proud of.
We have a lot to be proud of, and I agree with you 100% because it's only going to help us. It's never going to hurt us. Think about it that way. The more wisdom you get, the more knowledge, the more you can apply it to your works, the more you can use it on your journey for yourself and get closer to yourself and God himself. And it's just beautiful. So
absolutely. And we've had other models. Casey Kasem was a great philanthropist.
I used to listen to him all the time. Yeah.
He was a great voice actor. He was a great philanthropist. Allah yarhamu. He was somebody who really showed us that anything is possible. And I'll turn to the parents who say, well, you'll never make money. I'll say, oh, really? Did Casey Kasem never make money?
He made a lot of money.
And the entertainment industry. So, on every level, the person like that shows that everything is possible. Whether you want monetary attainment or whether you want artistic attainment or whether you want to just be somebody who is advocating for the rights of others overseas. I mean, Casey was a great advocate for different causes back in the homeland. So I'm sorry, but again, there are too many examples to show that we have done it and we can do it again.
I love it. I used to listen to him actually on my way to acting classes when I was a kid every Sunday.
I met him several times, and he was just a humble, gentle,
so
kind
lucky. I wish
person.
I met him.
Oh, I met him at the convention multiple times, and he was a great man and a sweet man. So, I think he shows us that, you can keep who you are and be successful. You don't have to change who you are.
I love that. Thank you. Malek, thank you so much. Honestly, I'm overwhelmed by all the amazing wisdom you have and just how much you're advocating for the Druze and the Arab Americans in general. I think it's beautiful what you do. And we're very lucky to have you in our community, especially
we're lucky to have you, Hadil, for all of your advocacy. I mean, the fact that you're doing this podcast means that you're trying to make your contribution. And I'm sure that you're going to go on in your career and do amazing things. So
thank you.
I'm a big fan already. And I look forward to many more conversations with you, hopefully in the future.
I will definitely want that. So thank you. I really, really appreciate the kind words. So one last thing, where can we find you? So I know if anybody has questions or anything, what's the best way to reach you or follow you?
So University of Oregon has, you can type in my name and University of Oregon, and you'll see my webpage, and that comes up with all of the different things I've written, etc. But it also has my email address. So you can email me or call me at the University of Oregon. And again, I am here for you. Again, if I don't know the answer, I'll put you in touch with somebody who does know the answer. So I also want to make that call for anybody who's out there trying to do any sort of cultural production work and needs resources. Again, reach out to me, reach out to other Arab Americans in our field. We believe that there is a better way forward, and we are all willing to help. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity to talk about this. And those parents out there who are skeptical, call me as well. Talk to me. I will also talk to you and let you know my views, but also to, I get your concerns and I understand what you're going through, but trust me, your children deserve a shot at this life that this country has given both yourselves as parents, but also I think can give your children a beautiful, bright future as well.
Right. I love it. Thank you so much, man. Like, it's been an honor having you on here. And I
Pleasure
can't wait
talking
for
to you.
everyone to hear this.
Thank you so much. It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you. All right, guys, stay tuned to the next episode. All right. Bye-bye.